spooky season. I hope you're enjoying October. This is a fun episode. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, this is like a less like researchy, more conversational. So obviously we're pre-recording this. So we had there was like a couple of news stories that had come out about different people in the public eye that were talking about being diagnosed as adults with some kind of neurodivergence or ADHD. So it made me like kind of Google other people in the public eye with ADHD. So I thought we would just do like not quite a BuzzFeed list, but
an
just
Ankle
kind of,
High Listicle.
oh, that's good. Yeah, I like that. And I thought too, like all of the stories were a little bit different. So I thought it was really good examples of like different ways of being diagnosed and different paths and the way that people were impacted by different things. So, and like the symptoms that got people diagnosed, I thought was interesting too. So, and I think initially I kind of went into this with like oh, well, all of these people are famous and they have like, this benefit of privilege and greater access to treatments. And, but I think also keeping in mind things like Twitter, social media, tabloids, and how that must interject like the weight of public opinion with things like emotional dysregulation and rejection sensitivity and justice sensitivity, and how critical people with ADHD are of themselves. So I think that that's like an important thought to keep in mind kind of going through this. So the first person I looked at was Simone Biles, which I did not realize she had ADHD.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
So
Good
she is the most decorated gymnast in the history of the Gymnastics World Championship and is considered to be like the greatest gymnast of all time.
Yes. Yeah, she's outstanding. If you guys haven't watched her perform, you can like YouTube.
It's amazing.
Her. It is just like she is like so dialed in.
Yes.
And like the way that she does things and like she has like 4 or 5 different moves that are named after her.
Yeah.
Because she does these like she gets so high in her jumps that she can do more flips than anybody else. So she gets these like,
which probably helps.
Well, it does, but she also only has the muscles of somebody who's 4'8". Like she doesn't have like the frame like they talk about like
like size and power.
Phelps like wingspan.
Oh, we're gonna talk about Michael Phelps too.
Oh, like they talk about his wingspan. Like he has muscles covering that whole skeleton. She has muscles covering her whole skeleton too, but she doesn't have tinier. Like yes, exactly. So like it's not like the same. It's not like we all get the same amount of muscle tissue and then it just gets stretched or scrunched on your skeleton.
Right.
But yeah, she can like twist in a way and like does all these flips because she's in the air for longer and she's just an outstanding gymnast. Like if you're not into the Olympics or whatever, and you haven't
like
seen her,
clean, like so much precision.
Yes. Solid like all the time.
I wish I could also see her ice skate.
Yeah,
love watching ice skating.
Me too. So good. It's the same as like rhythmic gymnastics. Like I could just like
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like white noise for my eyes. Like it's just so cool.
Actually, you can tune into one of our very first Patreon episodes where we're talking about the our version of the Olympics, which had animals in it.
That's true. Yes.
Actually, we have a lot of Patreon episodes about animals.
We might have released that one. I can't remember. We did.
I think you're right. I think we did.
We did because there was something Dysfunction Junction Penguin Edition was the name of the episode. I think. Yeah, we've
had some weird conversations. So
no regrets.
Zero.
Evidently, Simone Biles has too. Probably.
So she won the U.S. Olympic champion. She was the U.S. Olympic champion, and she won all around gold at the 2016 Rio Olympics. She tweeted, so what happened was, you know, all of the people that are participating in the Olympics are getting drug tested. And all of those records are like sealed. It's like treated like a medical record with the World Anti-Doping Agency. Russian hackers leaked her record. And it showed that she had tested positive for Ritalin, which the Olympic Committee had no problem with because she had a diagnosed reason for having it.
The if you don't know, the name of that drug is methylphenidate, so it starts with the word meth. Yeah,
that's like when Katie jokes about taking her meth. So she, in response to that, tweeted, having ADHD and taking medication for it is nothing to be ashamed of, and nothing that she should be afraid of letting people know about. And it's just like,
how is she so poised?
So shitty.
It's just wild.
And that's like, when you read about Simone Biles, it's just, you're constantly like, oh, how is she even? So it just like sucks that, you know, it's something that she has to publicly address because somebody leaked confidential information about her.
Yeah.
She also tweeted, I have ADHD and I have taken medication for it since I was a kid. Please know I believe in clean sport, have always followed the rules, and will continue to do so, as fair play is critical to sport and is very important to me. Again, like, she shouldn't even have to answer for this since somebody leaked her confidential information.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that she was important to include because she has had very public conversations about mental health. And I think a lot of mental health conversations have happened around her. So in 2021, she pulled. So 2021 was the 2020 Olympics, right?
Correct.
They like delayed them. Okay.
Yeah, in Tokyo.
So she pulled out of the Olympics saying that she needed to prioritize her mental health, which, when you put in context, you know, the pressure of being the best at the Olympics, being, you know, in 2018, she went public about being one of the people abused by Larry Nassar, who was that U.S. gymnastics physician. Side note, thrilled to hear he got stabbed in prison.
Yeah, snaps for getting stabbed. Which also, when the Larry Nassar scandal, it was really the scandal that rocked the American, like, Academy of Gymnasts or whatever it was.
Right.
That was the scandal. But when his crimes came to light, that was happening during the Rio 2016 Olympics.
Right.
So yes, and then she came out in 2018 that she had been one of his victims as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Along with like all of these other,
with most
Olympians.
of the 2016 team that she was there with, and a lot of the 2012 team. Allie Reisman has been extremely outspoken about it. She was on the team. She's one of the people who delivered a victim impact statement that went kind of like viral. But yeah.
And the terrible thing is, like, you know, so you've got this coming out. So she's super, I mean, now she's only like 26. So she was like a teenager during the 2016 Olympics. So she's a teenager at the Olympics, like winning all these golds. The story breaks, which obviously has got to be so incredibly triggering for her and all her teammates, who are probably like barely holding it together to get through, even though they're like so incredibly talented at what they're doing. So yeah, and then you've got people like, even if she didn't come public, all she's going to be asked about is this story that broke. So then, you know, how triggering it must be to be going to the Olympics now 4 or 5 years later.
I think that's exactly what happened.
Right. And then it's bringing up like all of these things that you're like, and it's sad because when something like this happens, that's the first thing people are asking about. So you look at these like amazing accomplishments she's had and things that she probably really doesn't want to talk about. And it's the first thing people are asking her, as though she's required to speak for something that this asshole did. And I also did not realize that she also grew up spending a lot of time in foster homes. So it's just
I didn't
like
realize that.
You look at somebody who is just like, I think people with ADHD have a tendency to doubt themselves a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But like, look at Simone Biles, like all of these terrible things, which it's like sucks that she's had to be so resilient in her life.
Mm-hmm.
But, like all of these things that she's overcome and has been able to like still excel and be like the best at what she does.
Yes.
Despite,
and I mean, she got
all this garbage
dragged for pulling out of the 2020 Olympics. And I remember having a conversation I was golfing with some family members, and my aunt said, like, you know, it's just super shitty because she took that spot from somebody else who could have been on the team. And I was like, that one person is the only person who gets to be mad.
Yes.
And everybody else can shut up.
She doesn't like owe it to the nation to
no. And like my aunt was like,
perform.
well, you know, like the country pays for her to go. And I was like, honestly, like I think she was, and I said, I was like, I'm pretty sure she was triggered. And that's what the problem was. Because the last time that she was at an Olympics, it was when everybody found out that her doctor had been molesting her and all of her teammates for years.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that not going to be triggering? And my
really,
aunt like looked at me and was like, oh, well, you're probably right. And I was like, I know I'm right.
Yeah.
Like, as somebody who has been triggered and had a complete freak out that was outside of my control, that's exactly what happened.
Right.
And I mean, to her credit, she also stayed and showed up for all of her teammates and was there.
Right.
Like fully, again, like you can watch her at the 2020 Olympics. She was getting them water and getting them chalk and making sure they had everything, like helping them do the wraps for their ankles before they did their vaults and stuff. So like she was there as a teammate 100%, just as much as she would have been there as a competitor. And she still went back for the, I think, all around beam or the beam finals and got silver. So,
and I mean, how many people didn't get the opportunity to participate in the Olympics because of what Larry Nassar did to them? I mean, where, you know, they couldn't.
That's a better question.
Like, you know, where it was just like they had to leave gymnastics altogether because it was like too painful for them. So it's just, it was totally like a misplaced anger. Like Simone Biles doesn't owe it to anybody to fucking perform. And I could give a shit about how much taxpayer money went to it.
Right.
How much,
especially since Olympians get taxed on their medals when they bring them back into the country.
It's just gonna make me angry.
No, but that's a great point. Yeah.
But anyway, yes, Simone Biles has ADHD. The next one,
Simone Biles, come on our podcast.
Katie would fully implode.
I would show her all of my special dance moves that aren't good, but
and I would even sing them myself. The next person we have is Greta Gerwig. And this, I mean, it's not going to be like brand new news by the time this is coming out, but we just
brand new to us.
The other day. Yes. So Greta is an American actress, screenwriter, director. Her solo directorial debut was Lady Bird. I love the movie Lady Bird.
I've never seen it.
It's got Saoirse Ronan in it, and it's so good.
I love
it's
Saoirse Ronan. I love Saoirse Ronan in the movie Brooklyn.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I think Timothée was in it too. I think he's also in Lady Bird.
Cool.
Which I will never say it Timothy ever again. She also directed Little Women and now Barbie. So she's been nominated for 3 Oscars. And she discussed how she's always been a real rule follower as a child. Had a ton of energy, and now as an adult, she said how they had diagnosed her with ADHD, and she said as a kid, her mom was just like, let's sign her up for like every possible activity to tire her out, because she always had a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, and said that she was just interested in everything, just a really active imagination, and also talked about having very deep feelings and being very emotional. Which I thought, like, you know, obviously a lot of the descriptions that you see of ADHD are not this.
Well, so when I read the idea of like, let's tire them out, for sure, you hear ADHD when it comes to boys, especially because it's like, oh, we got to make sure that they're in all these sports and they got to be doing this. And like, basically don't give them a chance to like sit still and get bored, because if once they get bored, it's
climbing
real bad and super
Right.
destructive. Yeah.
But I thought like the being very emotional and like deeply emotional. And she also went on to say like her one son is also that way, and how much she like can connect with him on that level, because that's exactly how she was and is. But I thought like, wow,
that's what Greta was saying. Yes. Or her mom?
No, that's what she was saying in a different part of the interview. And I thought that it was, you know, so much of the descriptions that we get of ADHD are just very like male centric, that seeing this description where she was a rule follower and just, and not just energy, but like enthusiasm and being interested in so many things.
I was going to say the being interested in so many things and being the rule follower like resonates with me so much.
Yeah. And I think it's so different from a lot of the descriptions that we tend to see about ADHD.
Oh, totally. Yeah, because like impulsiveness is seen as a bad thing, whereas like I could impulsively learn about prehensile penises that belong to elephants.
There we go.
It's the new gangrenous flappy doodles. That's what it is.
It's and don't think for a second that gangrenous flappy doodles are going away, because they are not.
Gangrenous flappy doodles are forever.
Yes.
De Beers.
He went to Jared. So she, like, in general seems to be a really private person. But I just thought it was like, I loved the description, and I loved seeing something that was not a very stereotypical like male approach.
Was she just diagnosed?
She just recently came out and said that
she was. So she was just
I
don't know about it.
Yeah, I don't know how recent the diagnosis was. It definitely sounds like she was diagnosed as an adult.
Cool.
Yeah.
Greta Gerwig, come on our podcast.
Yeah, please. I would love to talk about Lady Bird all day. The next one we're talking about is Michael Phelps.
Yes.
Who is the most decorated Olympic champion ever, and is a multiple world record holder, which is just like crazy. So there was a lot more information available on him, because Michael Phelps he's been very open, especially in recent years, about mental health and his struggle with ADHD, and I'll talk about some of the other things, but it was really interesting reading about how it was handled in his childhood. So he was diagnosed when he was 9, and his mom, who was a teacher herself, was just like such a champion for him, and was constantly finding ways to make things work for him, and making sure that like people that were, you know, teachers and tutors and things that he had were also working in a way that worked for him, which is like, really, that's how things should be. Like, we should be trying to find ways that work for kids. So she said, you know, he would talk about how much he hated reading, so she would buy him books about sports. He had a hard time staying focused during math, so she found a tutor and encouraged the tutor to use word problems tailored to his interests. Like, how long would it take to swim 500 meters if you swim 3 meters per second? So she really
Nightmare
tried to...
for me, but
I want nothing to do with that. And she noticed that he would like get really angry during swim meets if he didn't win. So she came up with like hand gestures that she would give him. Like, she would form a C with her hand to remind him to compose himself if she could see him getting angry. So she was just like so involved.
And then he would form a flag with his middle finger.
2 middle fingers coming up out of the water. But I just thought it was like really amazing that she just instead of getting just frustrated and throwing her hands up with a kid who I'm sure had a ton of energy, she really made sure to find ways to make things work for him. And she said that she started noticing when she would get stressed, he would do the C to her.
Aww.
So he was really like internalizing it and using it and like recognizing it.
That's so cute.
Isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
So I just thought like this is a great example of, even though it probably wasn't, I mean, I'm sure they're not talking about it in this terms, but finding like a way to get that dopamine chase to work to help him be successful. So he retired from competition in 2016, but in the meantime has been really open about struggles with depression, anxiety, substance abuse. He specifically
didn't he get arrested for? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
He had two DUIs.
Okay.
And he said that he was like almost contemplating suicide after that. Like he was just at such a low point. And he started going to therapy, which he credits with saving his life.
Wow.
And he specifically has encouraged men to be more vulnerable and open and seek therapy. And has done like a lot of interviews, and he does a lot of like advocacy and philanthropy, and a lot of it in terms of athletes too. So it was just like, it was really interesting reading about him. And he did this an interview with Sports Illustrated, and he was talking about, he's also partnered with Talkspace too to help encourage people to get into therapy. He said, for me, the more I share my stories, the lower my shoulders drop, the more comfortable I am about my story and who I am. And he told this story that he was like on a flight, like in the last few years. And there was this guy, he said he was like, I don't know, like 65, 70. And he said something to him like, that talking about this stuff was like a sign of weakness. And he basically had to say to the guy, like, I am not willing to have a conversation with you. And like walked away from the conversation. Like, can you imagine being just some random dude sitting next to fucking Michael Phelps on a flight and being like, hey, I understand that you're the most winning Olympian of all time. But
aren't
weak.
you a little bitch?
Yes. Like
baby back bitch.
The audacity to do that.
I mean, it's such old white guy energy.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
100%. But good for him, like for, going to therapy and learning how to have that boundary.
Oh,
where,
yeah.
And like, that thing where like even I still work on it, but where you kind of have to identify like, is this person even worth having a conversation with?
Right.
Or because if they're not going to change their mind ever.
Right.
And if it's the kind of thing where it's like, well, what could I say to change your mind? Nothing. Okay.
Bye.
Like, then go on living that, because I'm not going to waste my breath. It's not worth it to me. It's not worth my energy. It's not worth my peace to, get red in the face arguing with you. Yeah. When you have no interest in learning.
Also, have I mentioned, I am the most winning Olympian in history.
Right.
And it's like, and to also be again like that public facing, how hard it must be to like have that status. Because one of the things he specifically mentions is after each Olympics that he was involved in, he would have this like super high and then like a really low and would go into a depression afterwards. And to recognize those patterns, to recognize that you need to be seeking like first and foremost like rehab, because you've got a substance abuse issue, which we know is super common with anxiety,
and super
with
common
ADHD,
with ADHD. Oh, yeah,
is what I meant. But also with anxiety and depression, which are all things that he's talked about.
Well, and especially to be going through that after you retire from the sport,
right?
And
and you're still super young,
right? So then like if I suddenly had to retire from being an attorney, I would kind of feel lost and like I didn't know what to do with myself. Like,
yeah,
these are the skills I have. I have no other skills.
Yeah.
So like,
how
what am I supposed to
listless he
do?
must feel.
Right. Like totally plausible to be falling into that depression. And even after an Olympics to feel like, well, I'm never going to be able to do that again. You know, like, you know, and have those thoughts, because again, I think also that part of what comes with ADHD is that it's hardly ever talked about. I know that Jamie has talked about it a lot on her podcast, but like the idea of just this like inherent imposter syndrome that we have, especially post-diagnosis, as I think more so people who are diagnosed as adults, where like Jamie posted on her stories recently something about how like she has to go in for her checkups for her prescription refills. And it's like every time I just think like, this is the time they're going to say, no, you were faking it. We're not refilling your prescription. And she's like, I've been on, like,
you're just drug
you diagnosed me. And all of a sudden, like every time I'm like, they're going to figure me out. They're going to tell me I don't have it. And it's
so
like,
I can't
it's
imagine.
so irrational.
Right.
But yeah, like, and I think that imposter syndrome symptom is, I mean, obviously it's not in the DSM, but I think it's something that a lot of ADHDers in particular deal with, because there are those moments where we're superheroes and we can get everything done. And so then you're like, well, is it just that I'm a bad person? Am I just lazy?
Well, and how many people tie, you know, the athleticism with maleness and masculinity. And
I mean, that's what the Olympics were founded
winning,
on. Like, they're all naked and literally wrestling in the middle of an arena. So
I mean, we would still watch
wasn't
them,
gay.
to be honest.
Stop saying it was gay.
We wouldn't watch it. It wasn't appropriate for us. But like, and the pressure of like representing your country, and I just like, I can't imagine the amount of pressure. And I think that we have there's so much toxic masculinity, especially when you go back to like 2016. We're talking about the height of Trumpdom. I mean,
oh, totally.
That
grabbing her by the pussy, and that was just locker room talk. And
that is a really hard point to be talking about mental health. So it's just like, especially I just thought it was really impressive.
Mental health. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, you know, mental health is health. And, you know, whether you're an athlete or an attorney or you're doing whatever, it's still an important thing. It still needs to be a priority. So the fact that he's like having those conversations consistently and staying in that space and like trying to advocate for people, I just thought was really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he said he hardly swims now. He said he like does it a little bit.
He's swimmed more than I have my whole life, so
that's true.
He's swimmed more than I will in my whole life. And I
might
swimming.
have ESP. The next person I wanted to talk about was Trevor Noah.
Oh yeah.
So Trevor Noah was the former host of The Daily Show. He's a comedian, a writer, a political commentator. He started hosting The Daily Show in 2015 when Jon Stewart retired. He's hosted the Grammy Awards. He's had a comedy tour. And he was diagnosed as an adult with ADHD after he had challenges with focus and productivity throughout his life. So
been there.
Sounds familiar. So Trevor actually grew up during apartheid in South Africa, and wrote a memoir about this called Born a Crime, which is in reference to his parents' marriage being against the law at the time of his birth. His father was Swiss and his mother is African. He faced poverty. There was a lot of domestic violence in his house growing up. He had struggles fitting in being mixed race, especially during a time when being mixed race was so political in South Africa. And he does credit some of that undiagnosed ADHD as his ability to like be able to persevere and be successful despite all of these things that were kind of in his way. He did an interview that I know like made the rounds on social media a lot with CBS with Leslie Stahl. And he said, what I've come to learn thanks to some great therapists is my depression is created by a severe level of ADHD. If I'm not careful how I sleep, how I eat, how I manage my routine, I can become overwhelmed and it can feel like the whole world is just too heavy to bear. Which you should definitely go back and listen to our episodes on depression. And while we didn't talk about
our episodes on sleep.
And our episodes on sleep. Actually, that's a good point. And when we did those episodes, I didn't touch on ADHD and depression specifically, but ADHD and depression can often co-occur, and when they do, it usually creates a situation where each one of those is more acutely experienced. It's estimated that adults with ADHD are 2.7 times more likely to have depression than the general adult population. So definitely go back and listen to those and check in with yourself.
And our burnout episodes would be good.
Yes.
As well.
Seasonal depression.
All of our episodes. Just re-listen to everything.
Yes. Start at the beginning and go back and re-listen to everything. And his story was just like, it was really interesting. Like his father, so his parents divorced, and there was a lot of domestic violence when he was growing up, and his mom remarried, and his dad, like in 2009, shot his mother in the head.
His stepdad?
His
biological
father.
dad.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the bullet like came through the back of her head, narrowly missed everything, and came out like through her nose. So she wound up like being okay, and he wound up like going to prison, but it was just like a really wild story.
That is nuts. How are they still so involved with each other's lives? Like if they got divorced,
I don't know,
like a million years ago, and she remarried.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Jeez.
It was really wild. But he's been pretty open about like struggles with depression and struggles with his ADHD. And talks about those things in interviews pretty openly, which I thought was interesting.
Wow. Trevor Noah, come on our podcast.
Yeah.
Also, if you or someone you know is in a abusive relationship, you can go to thehotline.org for resources, and you don't leave a digital footprint.
Perfect. That was a good interjection.
I hate that I have that information off the top of my head, but here we are.
Yeah. Also that. Or what's the mental health hotline now? 988?
Yes. Yeah.
Also a good one.
Yeah, that's the national U.S. mental health hotline. You can call 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and be connected instantly with a trained mental health counselor. It's fully private and confidential.
That's nice.
Yay.
The lack of enthusiasm that came with that yay. The last person I want to mention is Solange Knowles, which is Beyonce's younger sister. Which I feel like a lot of people,
that hit Jay-Z.
Yes, they got in the fight in the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
And she
deserved it. We know what he did.
She is, I mean, known as Beyonce's younger sister, but has had a long music career in her own right. She was involved with Disney. She's been writing songs since she was a little kid. And she recently not recently. It was a while ago. I want to say in 2014, she did this interview. I just need these hiccups to stop so I can speak and not sound like Yosemite Sam. Okay. So she did an interview with BET where she opened up about being diagnosed with ADHD twice.
Cool.
She said that she was diagnosed and she didn't believe the first doctor. She said like she personally had a theory that ADHD was just something they invented to get you to like put you on medication. And it was just a drug seeking thing basically.
Okay. I mean, we've heard it before.
Yeah. She saw a second doctor who was like, no, you have ADHD. And she said it was really hard to see in herself because she feels like it is so common with people who are creative or in the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
She said the symptoms seem to apply to everyone around me in the industry. Loss of memory, starting something and not finishing it. She said that people tend to think she's high even if she's sober just because she's got this like energy level. And
going back to how we never get offered drugs.
Not us. So since then, she's become an advocate for ADHD, particularly because of the low diagnosis in Black children and concerns about the school to prison pipeline.
Yep.
And with good reason, because there are over 1 million Black students in the U.S. with disabilities, and frequently invisible disabilities like ADHD are not diagnosed and are missed. And then students don't get the support that they need to be successful. And then that can cause kids acting out, getting suspended. When they miss too many days, they start falling behind, they wind up dropping out. And then you start that school to prison pipeline, which is just like so tragic.
Right.
Today,
and not to mention, like, so many, like, we know, ADHD is genetic. So they're potentially coming from homes where their parents, one or both of them, have ADHD. And it's the kind of thing where, like, mine went undiagnosed because I was living in an ADHD house. Like, everything was designed for ADHD. So, like, I looked like I was doing swell.
Well, that's like when she made that comment about, like, other people in the music industry.
Yep.
It makes perfect sense how you might miss it if everybody around you is doing the same thing.
And it's like, I know that we've said it before, and you've said it, like, our partners are very similar. We are very similar. But I think, like we've talked about before, how, like, neurodivergent people tend to kind of find each other. And I think part of the reason is that, like, you can interrupt somebody and it's not a thing.
Yeah.
And you might leave, like that happened at dinner the other night with PK's family. Like, we got home and I was like, oh, I for sure stopped that story in the middle of it and never went back.
Like, I've never done that in my life.
Yeah. And I was like, I do that almost every single time I talk to his mom. So, like, I give her, like, these little breadcrumbs of, like, super ridiculous information, and then I never follow up or, like, finish the story. So eventually she's going to be like, Katie, what the fuck is wrong with you?
But it's true. I mean, like, it's easy to miss if you don't see anybody different than that.
Yeah.
Or if most of the people that are around you are different than that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like neurodivergence. Then you seem like the neurotypical person, and people whose brains work differently are the neurodivergent ones in that situation. So today there's more than 750,000 people with disabilities behind bars in America.
Wow.
And half of all women who are incarcerated in America have a disability, and the majority of them do not have high school diplomas and are functionally illiterate and people of color. So it's, like, totally a valid cause to be advocating for.
Yeah, I actually just saw something that Solange and Beyonce just put up all of the money to build a, like, multi-million-dollar housing facility for Houston's unhoused population.
I love that. And
yeah,
Houston
so it's
specifically has done, like, different things with their unhoused population. Like, they have a totally different like, program that they set up, and I was listening to something recently on it and I forgot everything about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, it's basically like I think my understanding of my brief skim of the information was that it was going to be kind of like a hotel sort of thing. Maybe like a residence inn style where you'd, like, have your own space and your place to cook and everything. But, like, kind of that thing of, like, you can be a part of the solution, and, when you have the ability to solve the problem, just fucking solve it.
Looking at you,
obviously,
Jeff Bezos, Bill
yeah.
Gates.
I mean,
you can't really take issue with Bill Gates. He's been doing a bunch of shit, but Jeff Bezos.
I've heard actually that he is bombing any chicken farm that he doesn't know. So, in certain conspiracy theory circles. So, something about how he's buying up all the chicken farms in the world, and then he's, like, bombing any chicken farm that refuses to sell to him or something.
Jeff Bezos?
No, Bill Gates.
Bill Gates?
So that he can, like, microchip the chicken or something. I don't know. Something. It's, like, very QAnon.
Now that you say that, I had a dream last night that somebody
that you
was
were
trying
microchip chicken.
kind of somebody was trying to gift me a manicure and a pedicure and they called me from this place to schedule it, and the girl started telling me that I needed to reach out to like TSA or something. And she was like,
you need to get pre-check for this.
She was like, yeah, you need to give them like this information that'll make things much smoother. And I was like, why do you need that for nail polish? And she like wouldn't answer the question. And then she said something about the microchips going into the nail polish. And I was like, why are there fucking microchips in your nail polish? And she wouldn't answer anything. It was a very weird dream that I forgot about.
It's for people who bite their nails so that then they can implant them.
That's definitely what it is, except I've never really bitten my nail. So
you're definitely in that third trimester crazy
bizarre dreams. Bizarre. Like I wake up and I'm like, that was fucking weird. So there was a bunch of other people that showed up on this list. Howie Mandel, Ty Pennington, Adam Levine, Justin Timberlake. So I figured I would just focus on the people that I didn't automatically gag when I read their name.
Doesn't Howie Mandel also struggle with like germophobia / OCD?
Yeah, he's got like OCD, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to call it that because I wasn't sure. But I know that like he won't shake hands with people.
I think he does. Yeah. We saw a thing about him recently.
Oh, okay.
Apparently he's like very big on pranks, Howie Mandel. And when he was in high school, he like contacted 3 different contractors for quotes for doing an addition on the school, and just like did that for shits and giggles. So the one day they show up and the guy starts like measuring and like starting site work, and he gets called to the principal office because they must have known it was him. And they were like, did you call a contractor to like add on to the library or something? And he was like, yeah, but don't worry, like I got other quotes. I didn't just get one.
I'm assuming he was in high school when he did this.
Yes. He was like a teenager.
I thought he was doing it now, and I was like, that's psychotic.
No.
Like that's not
like
OCD.
As a high schooler.
Something else.
No. It was just like the way he told it was so funny. But yeah, there's they also said that Terry Bradshaw has ADHD, and I'm like, I feel like he's just got CTE.
Which you can exhibit ADHD symptoms from traumatic brain injuries, so that would track.
It would. There was a handful of others, but I figured I'd focus on the ones that I wanted to. But I figured this can also be like a continuing thing, like we can update this as time goes on with like, oh, this one
absolutely.
Just came out and said.
It's certainly worth, because I think it's like you said, it's always interesting to hear people's diagnosing stories and how they got diagnosed, and
they were all different, so I thought it was like a very cool comparison to see.
And they're all super fucking successful.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
You don't have to feel like you're not going to amount to anything just because you have ADHD.
Right. Which I thought that was also like a great example of like people excelling in what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Simone Biles being the perfect comparison, like despite all of these things.
I think gymnastics or like figure skating or something like that, as a sport, it allows an element of creativity. So you can, with ADHD, it's probably an excellent sport to be involved in because you can, choreograph your routines and still you're getting that energy out. You're being like really powerful, and you can feel like, that kind of thing where like, throwing weights around is way more fun than sitting on a treadmill for an hour. You can get that kind of like dopamine hit from feeling like super fucking accomplished and nailing a landing or whatever.
Yeah.
But also you get to do that, the creative side of things, where you get to create stuff, and you can be a musician or a artist or a director, and you can do other stuff, or be a lawyer and have a podcast or whatever.
Yeah, something like that,
for example.
So that was, I guess, celebrities with ADHD, famous.
That was
people.
really interesting. Yeah.
I thought I was really impressed when I was reading through. I was like, Trevor Noah, I didn't really know anything about, so I thought that was very interesting too. And it was like really sad. His story.
Yeah, I'll have to pick up his memoir because that's. I'm not usually a huge fan of celebrity memoirs, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, no, I think his has probably got some more depth to it.
Yeah.
Than
well, and it's not the same story of. You know, the last one I tried to read, I think, was Tina Fey's, which was fine.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, you know, it's Trevor Noah's story is different than
for sure
the American experience.
Yes, for sure. It's a very unique. I mean, just the time that he was born, because I think he's 39. So the time that he was born is like a huge piece of context for his childhood. So yeah, I think that it would probably be worth reading. It was very interesting reading about him. So yeah, that's our episode.
Yeah, good job.
Thanks.
If you want to keep up with us, you can follow us on Instagram at The Bar is Ankle High. We are also on Threads under the same handle at The Bar is Ankle High. If you want to check out our merch, we're on Zazzle, but you can find us at bit.ly/ankle high merch. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you can. And as I mentioned at the beginning, right now, while Garet's on maternity leave, all of our Anklet and Limbo Champion subscribers are getting ad-free episodes every week because we're pretty sure we're not doing Dysfunction Junction episodes while she's on maternity leave. So
my brain is going to be a dysfunction junction.
You can basically get a discount for ad-free episodes until Garet comes back from maternity leave. So you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/thebarisAnkleHigh. Is there anything else? I think that's everything.
I think you hit all the big ones. Happy spooky season.
Happy spooky season. Go carve a pumpkin. Eat some pumpkin seeds.
Scare somebody.
Yummy. Scare somebody.
Haunt someone.
Yeah, and in the meantime, you know, go be the goat at whatever you want to be the goat at.
Yeah, I like that. Go excel at whatever you enjoy.
Yeah, because the bar is ankle high.
Bye.
Bye.